That was my mother's mantra.
Really?
Every day I heard, you are fat, you are ugly, you will never be loved. No man will ever love you. You better be perfect at everything you do.
Welcome to this week's episode of the His Hill Podcast. My name is Kelly Daugherty, and I'm your host. I'm really glad and thankful that you've joined us today. You know, so many people seek to find security in so many places, but it seems that the one common denominator in all of it is that we are driven to find our place in this world, to know that we're loved. In a couple of recent polls that I've come across, one from the Washington Post, we find that 40% of adults ages 45 and up report feeling lonely. And that number's going up from previous surveys. In the Gallup poll, we read that many people feel that others don't care about them at all. As a matter of fact, about 15% of adults worldwide said that neither their neighbors nor their government care about their well-being at all. So this seems to be something that many of us can identify with. Today's guest is a friend of ours from the local area. Her name is Carol Lester. Carol, before coming to Christ as an adult, lived a very successful and very driven life in the pursuit of finding purpose and love. But as you're going to hear her explain, it wasn't until she came by faith to know Jesus that she truly realized the fulfillment of that desire. So let's listen as Carol shares her testimony with us. I have with us today a friend of ours from the local area who is also a member of our church. She's the church secretary. If I went through a list of all that she is, that would be the podcast. So I'm not going to do that. I'll let Carol explain what she wants to of all of that. But this is Carol Lester. Carol, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. Carol, you live here in Texas, of course, now. You're in the local area. But where were you born?
I was born in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Okay.
Before Alaska was even a state.
Oh, really?
We were a territory.
Okay. Wow. When did they become a state?
59.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. What was life like for you growing up there?
Well, I don't remember much about Alaska.
Oh, okay.
My siblings all remember. They were there 3 years. I was there 9 months.
Okay.
So I don't remember. But as an Air Force brat, for me, it was a great life.
Okay.
Yes, there were parts that were difficult because every 2 to 3 years you were moving.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So you were leaving behind friends and things that you knew. But the good part of that is that you learned to make new friends. You had to be the one to make the effort. I learned cultures and languages that back in the day kids only read about. So I got to live them.
What kind of places did you live?
Germany, so traveled around Europe. Then different places in the States, the D.C. area, Texas, North Carolina, different places.
Okay. When did you become a Christian?
Not until I was 30.
Oh, really? Okay. So did you grow up in a Christian home?
Yeah, well, reared Methodist.
Okay.
So, yes, going to church and being active in church. But so far as understanding a personal relationship with Christ, that didn't happen until I was 30.
What was those years until you were 30, what was it like as a child growing up, I guess, attending church, but, looking back now, knowing that you didn't really know Christ, knew about him, but didn't know him, what your memories, what was that like?
Well, my dad actually was an associate pastor.
Really?
And at one time, he was the senior pastor at Parita Methodist Church in Parita, Texas. I was little. I was I just remember getting sticker burrs in my little anklet socks. That's what I remember about that church experience. But I remember just Daddy always studying the Bible. Daddy was always in the Word.
So was he a believer?
He was a Jewish believer.
Oh, really? Okay.
So he was reared in Judaism. When he was 18, he became a believer that Jesus was the Messiah.
Wow.
So his family disowned and disinherited him. So he was really on his own. So again, we grew up in church, very active. I was in the children's choir, and we went to Methodist Youth Foundation and Sunday school and all those things. We were always at the church. But again, you just did the things. It wasn't a personal relationship.
Did you consider yourself to be a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And as I've told people, I mean, even through college and all that, I mean, yes, I lived a quote-unquote moral life.
Okay.
I knew right, wrong. I knew all of those things. But there was definitely an emptiness. There was definitely... I was always told when I was young that I had to be perfect at everything I did. That I would never be loved. That if I wanted to be liked, I had to be perfect. So from the time I was little, I was striving.
Was this just you, or was this true of your siblings as well?
Definitely with my sister.
Okay.
So both of us had that.
How many siblings?
I have 2 brothers and a sister,
Okay.
so there are 4 of us.
Okay.
I'm the youngest. I think probably all of us had that, but my sister and I think got it more.
Okay.
And again, part of that is the benefits of that. We all got really good grades in school. Really good grades in school. We did well at any job we did.
Okay.
I got into the college that I wanted to attend, as we all did. So it definitely had its benefits. But the emotional and physical toll, I tell people, from the time I was probably 5th grade until 12, 15 years ago, I never got more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night.
Wow.
I was always studying. I was always working. I was always done 2, 3, 4 jobs. And they all had to be perfect. So,
well, if you don't mind, let's explore this a little bit, because I find this interesting, that somebody can grow up with a father who's a Christian, who's a pastor, and who is somebody who is active in church. I'm assuming you read your Bible?
I knew verses,
okay,
but did actually reading it.
Okay.
Not really. I mean,
did you take part in Bible studies?
Sunday school.
Sunday school. Okay. So you were, you watched your father reading it. I'm sure you heard his sermons, and you were around believers. So the Bible was not necessarily foreign to you. Okay. I'm just curious, because I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in a home that, we were very active in church. We very active in Bible study. But I'm just curious, did any of that ever, make you curious or interest you, or things that you would hear your father say, or things that you would hear from the Bible? Was any of that ever get your attention?
I think more, and I don't know if this is just Methodist doctrine back in the day, but it was more works generated.
Okay.
Rather than that relational piece.
Okay.
I read passages of the Bible, and again, did Sunday school lessons, vacation Bible school, all of that. But it really did not hit until I was invited. I was back in San Antonio. I was invited to Wayside Chapel, and
was Steve Troxel
Steve
pastor?
Troxel was doing a sermon, and that sermon was, talk about a God appointment. He said, "You have never been perfect. You are not perfect. You will never be perfect." And I'm sitting there going, tell me something I don't know.
Wow. So you recognize that.
Oh.
Even though you were knocking yourself out and you were achieving. Well, tell the listeners some of what you have achieved. What before this point, like you did well in high school. You said you got into the college you wanted. What college was it? What was your major? How driven were you?
Well, I graduated from high school in San Antonio at Thomas Jefferson High School. And but when I was 7 years old, we drove through North Carolina. And Daddy took me to the campus of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And we walked the campus, the two of us, and I said, "This is where I'm going to go to college." And all he said was, "I think you'll like it." That was it. But I knew I was going to go to the University of North Carolina.
You're going to be a Tar Heel.
I was going to be a Tar Heel. And, I was second grade. We were living in the D.C. area.
Really? Who thinks about that in second grade?
And and then when I was in fourth grade, I told Daddy, I want to be a teacher.
Okay.
And he said, "You will never make any money as a teacher." And I said, "I don't care. I want to be a teacher." He said, "Then you will be a good one." And that was that conversation. So I knew where I was going when I was 7, and I knew what I was going to be doing when I was 9.
Wow.
So that was kind of it. But as an out-of-state student, to get into Chapel Hill, you had to have really good grades because I was an out-of-state kid. Because at that time, I think only 5% of applicants from out of state were chosen.
Really? Wow. Okay, so you got in.
I got in.
And
in fact, I got in as a junior in high school. I had enough credits to graduate my junior year.
Okay, so you're really wearing yourself out. Yeah. Okay.
I was in all honors classes, and I would go to summer school just to take extra credits, and took college level courses. I went to Our Lady of the Lake University in the summer.
Did you have a social life at all?
I was in the band.
Okay.
So I did stuff, just with the band. Social life, no. I did not have a life.
Okay, and you got credit for being in the band.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to Chapel Hill, and to be a teacher. How long were you there?
I graduated in 4 years.
Okay, and then what?
Then I started teaching in Durham County, North Carolina, 6th grade, and but I was doing several other jobs as well.
Really?
Yes, I was actually teaching music at a federal prison in Butner, North Carolina. I was I was drummer and backup vocalist for an Elvis impersonator. So we traveled around the East Coast on the weekends and did concerts. You do.
Wow. Okay. So, were you just a lone wolf with this prison job, or did you have? I mean, that sounds really rough for a young lady to be involved in. Not that working for an Elvis impersonator traveling around is probably not rough, but go ahead.
Well, it was fun, but it was a lot of work. But yeah. People don't realize being on the road, and but it was fun. Okay. FCI Butner was an interesting gig. My best friend at the time, she's still my best friend, but she was teaching out there.
Okay.
And she said, hey, why don't you apply? They're looking for another person. Okay. So the two of us would drive out there together. Our classrooms were in different parts of the prison, but it was an all-male facility. And FCI Butner is for the criminally insane. So,
and you're in your early 20s
I was
here.
22.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting because in my class I had serial killers and I had armed robbers and
Were you ever uncomfortable?
Just the first class, there were 44 men in that class.
No guards?
No guards.
Carol. Okay.
Yeah,
Right, so,
exactly.
All right. So you did that. You were teaching 6th grade and you were touring on weekends. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, did you ended up back in North Carolina at Chapel Hill at some point, didn't you? Or was that much later?
Well, I was in North Carolina after graduating. I was there another 6.5 years. So I was there a while. Mm-hmm. And then I would just go back as often as I could. But to go back and live there, no. Okay. I didn't go back.
Now, you went on to get more education and more training, though, right?
I did. After being out for a year, I went to UNC Greensboro and got a master's in education. I would have gone to Chapel Hill, but at that time, Carolina would not let you go part-time. You had to be a full-time graduate student. That wasn't going to work for me. So I was going to graduate school, doing these other things. I was certified as a fitness instructor, so I was teaching aerobics classes.
You got certified as a fitness instructor while you're going to school, while you're touring, while you're teaching at the prison and in 6th grade. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was busy.
Yeah, you were. Okay, so tell us, you got certified with all of this, and then...
So I kept teaching, and things happened. I won't go into that at this point, but there were some things that happened at the school where I was teaching. And I decided it was time to move on. So I applied to teach in Iceland with the Department of Defense, and I also applied to a teaching position at Our Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio. Okay. Because my parents were then back in San Antonio. I really wanted the Iceland job. I went through 4 different interviews. At the last interview, they said, we'll let you know September 1st. I'm like, I have to let my school district now know what I'm doing by June 1st? And how am I going to move from North Carolina to Iceland and teach on September 5th if you don't let me know till September 1st? Yeah. The timetable just was not going to work. But I had also applied for the lake job, and they hired me. So I moved to San Antonio. It was really a neat opportunity. This might be more detailed than you want, but I set up a laboratory. They had a laboratory school. I set up a program for special needs children because at that point in time, the Catholic school system did not acknowledge kids or accept kids with learning disabilities.
Really?
So this was a pilot program, the first of its kind in the nation. So it was a one-room schoolhouse. I had grades 1 through 8.
Wow. All
grade levels, all day.
Special needs.
Special needs.
But you didn't take the easy route anywhere.
No.
Okay.
No. So
you're really painting a picture of somebody that's really driven.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had I had 12 kids. I had 8 reading groups, 6 math groups, and this was all day. But then at night, I was teaching undergraduate and graduate level classes across the street. So my undergraduate and graduate students, I would teach a concept, and then they would come and watch me incorporate those concepts into my teaching.
Wow.
So it was really, really good. It was
I
really
bet
good.
it was. It sounds
it was a neat thing.
Like a great program, actually, yeah.
But that whole thing, I had to buy furniture, I had to order books. There was nothing. I built that thing from the ground up.
Wow. So,
and with the undergraduate students, they were doing practicums in summer school through Northside School District. So Northside then saw me supervising and doing and blah, 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 blah. And Northside approached me and said, we need a department head at John Jay High School. So I left the lake and interviewed and got the job at John Jay High School.
Which department?
Special ed department.
Okay.
So I was a department head. We had 450 special ed students at John Jay High School. It was the largest in the city.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I had 16 teachers under me. I was teaching 4 classes, running the department.
And what else?
I was actually teaching and doing stuff at SeaWorld. I mean, I was doing a lot of different things.
Okay. For our sports buffs in the audience, how are you getting to that? Okay, I'll let you get to it when you want to.
Okay, so while I was at John Jay, of course, I'm a sports enthusiast. I would go to all the football games, all the basketball games, all the baseball games, blah, 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 blah. Always have been. And being in Chapel Hill as a student, you can't help but be a basketball fan. I got to know Coach Smith very well when I was at Chapel Hill.
Oh, really?
Yes, such a wonderful man.
How did you get to know him?
Probably because I was the only girl drummer. And so he would see me hauling all the equipment up the stairs, down the stairs. And, so he knew who I was.
Yeah, he saw you at every game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He would often give me rides home after games.
Really?
Well, to the dorm. Yep. He's a lovely man. But I knew his coaching staff, Roy Williams, Eddie Fogler, all those guys. Got to know the players well. Would have them over for dinner sometime.
Really?
Yeah.
Just go ahead. Tell the audience who one of those players were.
Oh, Michael Jordan. So, one of my favorite stories is Eddie Fogler came to dinner one night, and he had just come back from a recruiting trip in Wilmington, and Eddie's from New York, and he'd say, Carol, he said, remember this name, Michael Jordan. Okay. He said, we're trying to get him. We're trying to sign him. Remember that name. He's going to be big. Okay. The rest is history. Wow.
And of course, during that time, that was big time heyday for the Tar Heels. There's a bunch of big names that you actually, these people. Mm-hmm. So, well, keep telling us about this.
Okay, so we can fast forward. So I'm at John Jay, and I started working with the basketball team. They all called me Miss Carolina. They did not know my real name. They knew me as Miss Carolina, Miss C. And so I just started working with them. And sometimes if they needed help with homework or they needed whatever, they would come see Miss C. Okay. Then the football team started coming. And one of our running backs, Teddy Hamilton, he'd had an injury or something, and he was really having a hard time getting back. So I just was talking with him about that. And the coach said, hey, you need to really start working with my players. Okay, so I'm doing all my other things, and I'm working with the different players. And I just decided, I think it's time for me to go back to school. So anyway, long story short, I ended up going to the University of Kansas to get my,
For people that don't know sports.
I know.
Kansas and North Carolina, the Tar Heels and the Jayhawks.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like she's crossed over here.
Yeah. Okay.
To the dark side.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought, well, I can go ahead and get a doctorate in education, but minor in sports psychology. Okay. So I'm singing in the Wayside Choir at that point, and one of the altos, my fellow altos, said, oh, well, you need to get in touch with Dr. David Cook when you get to KU. Okay. She said, he was my sports psychologist when I was in the Olympics. She was a synchronized swimmer. Okay. Who knew? So I said, okay, well, So I got to know Dr. Cook and quickly switched my major to sports psychology and my minor to education. But also, right after I'd been accepted to KU, I get a call from my friend, Coach Roy Williams. And I said, Roy boy. And he said, Carol, you've heard I'm going to be at KU. And I said, Roy boy, I'm going to be at KU. And so he said, why are you going to KU? And I told him. And he said, Carol, how would you like to come and work for my boys? They need a mother. And I said, okay. So I got up to KU. I was a doc student. I was traveling with the team. I was running their study halls, their academic advising, and I was doing some sports psych on them. So I ended up getting a second master's and a doctorate in sports psych.
Okay. And this is, I'm a sports enthusiast, so I could talk about these things all day. But, with these people that you were starting to know, because you are so driven, you're getting these positions, they're practically just falling in your lap.
God.
And you were sitting under the basket when Michael Jordan hit the national championship shot in New Orleans. And I've seen a picture of you standing next to Brett Musburger, who was the big television sports analyst of the day.
He was interviewing me.
Yeah, and so all of this is, but none of this was bringing any kind of rest to you.
No.
Okay. Was that frustrating for you?
No, I don't know. I guess all of that, I didn't see it as a big deal. These were just people that I knew.
Okay.
I'm in the basketball world, and these are people in the basketball world. They were my friends.
Okay.
But I was doing what I loved, and I was good at it, and it was just part of the job. It was just part of being who I was.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always more. There was always more to do.
Yeah.
There was always more to experience.
Because you did more with sports than only psychology. Didn't you get certified as, okay, now you're shaking your head. Tell us about it.
Okay, so I have massage therapy training and some sports medicine training. So all of that played in when I was traveling with the Kansas guys, for sure.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so you're in Kansas now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where'd you go?
Okay, so when I was working on my dissertation, I started teaching in the Topeka public schools at a high school. So I was teaching in the school, but I was working with the boys basketball team. And
the high school team.
The high school team. So it was really fun. I loved my dissertation study. By the end of it, it's a love-hate thing. If for those of you who've done a dissertation, you love it, but you hate it. You're ready to be done with it. But just working with that team all the time and still staying in touch with my KU guys and teaching and finishing, just writing a dissertation and doing. Then in the summer, this is another thing I had to do. I ran a hotel because I still had bills to pay. And you're not paid in the summer. So I ran a hotel in the summers while I'm writing my dissertation. And yeah. So, but when about that time, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Okay. And
I had not planned on coming back to Texas, but the Lord had a different plan. Mm-hmm. So I kind of dropped everything after I finished, and came home to Texas, and I took care of my dad until he passed, and then my mom wasn't in good health, and so I stayed in the San Antonio area and took care of her until she died. Mm. Then I moved to Boerne.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So tell us about coming to faith in Christ.
Well, again, I was at John Jay, and one of my teachers, she was lovely, and she invited me to church one Sunday, and I was used to going to church, but I had not been in quite a while. I didn't have a home church. I hadn't had a church in a while. I always went when I was in college. I always went every Sunday, but I hadn't been in quite a while. So I said, okay, because it's Debbie, I will go. And so Wayside had just moved into their brand new building. It was brand new at the time.
Yeah.
And she said, well, my husband and I will meet you in the lobby. So, okay, well, I'm waiting. The service is getting ready to start. They never show up.
Really?
Now, this was before cell phones. It was, okay. So I almost left. And I thought, no, I'm dressed. I'm here. I'll go. So I slip in towards the back. I'm behind one of their pillars for people who have been in Wayside. And, the service was fine. And Steve starts his message, and, he does the perfect thing. And then he said, but you don't have to be, because Jesus is perfect.
You don't have to be perfect because
right.
Jesus
is perfect. He always has been. He always will be. So you can rest in that. And he said, you are loved. You have always been loved. You will always be loved because Jesus gave his life for you, blah, 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 blah. And I was a puddle by this point because I had been told I would never be loved. No one would ever love me. And
really?
Oh, so that was my mother's mantra.
Really?
Every day I heard, you are fat, you are ugly, you will never be loved. No man will ever love you. You better be perfect at everything you do.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the mantra. And that played in my head all the time.
Oh my goodness.
So
did that play in, you think, to some extent of the busyness, the need for acceptance, and because she's not in your head,
yeah, to fill the emptiness. I mean, you just do. I don't know that I was looking for approval, but probably I was. I'm going to do the best I can do so that people will at least like me. They'll appreciate. Well, I mean, to this day, I still do jobs to the best of my ability. I'm not a slacker, I don't think. Right?
No, you're not. Yeah. No. And we certainly don't want don't want anybody listening to think that that's what we're saying.
Yeah. But it's just different. I'm not doing it to gain approval or acceptance or somebody to like me.
Right.
I am doing it for the glory of the Lord. He gave me the ability. He gave me the gifts. So to bring him honor and glory is that's what it's about.
Right. The source and the drive behind
it's
what you're
different.
doing is completely different. Yeah.
Major
Thomas, who's the founder of the Torchbearer ministry, used to say that before, as a young man, he was a believer and he had become a windmill of activity for the Lord. And he said he was miserable. And for years he would preach on the street corners. Nobody would ever respond. And he said it wasn't until he came to realize that the one who saved him lives in him and lives in him to live through him, and he could rest. And then he said he realized then that you cannot outwork the Holy Spirit. And he said he was never busier than when he had learned to rest in Christ. And then he was a very busy man till his death, writing books into his 90s. Very busy man. But so we're not saying that the activity is something to avoid. We're saying that the activity that is sourced by you is of no profit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you heard Steve preaching. Steve Troxel, by the way, for our listeners, is a former guest speaker of His Hill. He's home with the Lord now, but was just a precious man. His wife, wonderful.
Connie.
Yeah, Connie, wonderful. Just a blessing to us at His Hill. And so you hear him preach, And you're hearing this, that Christ loves you. Mm-hmm. And so...
I was a puddle.
Really?
I was a puddle. In that back pew, behind the pole, I was just a puddle. Mm. And, I said, if you want to invite Jesus into your heart, and, you bow your head and blah, blah, blah. I did. And that was it. I never looked back. Wow. Praise the Lord.
Your friend must have been shocked.
Well, when I saw her on Monday, because it was the next day, and she was at school, I said, "Hey, where are you and Dean?" She said, "Oh, her husband was a doctor. Well, this happened and this happened and this happened." And I said, "Well, she said, so you went?" And I went, "Yeah." And I gave myself to Jesus.
Wow.
so yeah, it was really a neat thing.
That's interesting too. I just want a side note, just from an invitation to would you come to church with me? Mm-hmm. I was listening to a pastor the other day explaining how strong of an invitation that is, and we're so afraid to extend it. That's, and he says, really, all it is just ask. Just ask. Worst that can happen is they say no. So what praise God for this friend who was, wanting to ask, willing to ask. So, where did you go with the Lord now with this? I mean, everything's changed now. I mean, here's a woman with all these accomplishments, and now you find where real life is. Mm-hmm. How did this change things for you?
Well, I think that typical where you're just on fire.
Yeah.
Then you really start studying the Bible and reading it, and then it starts to come alive, and then you get it, and then you go to the Bible studies that are very intentional. And of course, Wayside was Asbury Bible Church, where it's verse by verse and it's explained. And Russell Kelfer was the adult Sunday
Russell,
school teacher.
Another former guest lecturer from His Hill, who had a radio ministry, nationwide radio ministry, and was just an incredible communicator. I like to tell students, I used to teach a course here called Speaking Methods. And I would tell students, I would give them these, I would teach certain things to them. Okay, now this is what you want to do, but no. And I would always repeat this, but there are no absolutes. And one of them was that I said, don't read to your class or to whoever it is you're speaking to. Don't read. But there are no absolutes. I said, I knew this man who could read the phone book to you, and you would listen to every name. And that was Russell.
Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, Russell was amazing. So oh my goodness, I just loved Russell's class. I learned so much from him.
Bill Bushhouse, as a matter of fact, who's one of our, he's on staff as one of our guest lecturers. He's not on staff, but he's a former director here. And he's on the podcast often, giving devotions. And he was actually Russell's substitute for quite a while, I think it was. So this was a lot of people went to Wayside so they could go to this Sunday school class.
It was packed.
So how did the Lord use Russell's ministry?
Well, I think, because you can also pick up the written ones,
yes,
like the written transcript. And so I would pick those up every week. And so a lot of times I would go back through and spend time, reread them and just spend more time. There was a singles group that was quite large, and they would have retreats and they would do things. I was in the choir, and so it was a big choir. But that was another thing that I so really loved. Because I was in a children's choir, always been in choirs. But this just was much more meaningful somehow. And just the camaraderie and the fellowship was different. I think the fun part for me too is I was very bold until I left the classroom last year. So for all those years after I became a believer, I was very bold with my students. So these public school students, and I would just tell them about Jesus. And it's really interesting that some of those kids came to know the Lord. Some of them were very troubled and had very difficult homes. And, so that was, even when I was working at SeaWorld, there was a fellow employee that I just shared Christ with him. And he came up to me, I don't know, I saw him somewhere later, and he said, "Hey, remember when you shared Jesus with me? Yeah, well, I became a believer." And he was so excited. And so I just think, it was just the boldness to share. And I stayed in trouble in public schools. Let me tell you, I stayed in trouble. Yeah, because of that.
This is what comes to mind as I'm hearing you talk is I think James tells us to look intently into the mirror. It tells us to be doers, not just hearers. Then he goes on and explains that this is the doing of faith. Show me the faith without the works. I'll show you my faith by my works. So it's not a work of the flesh. It's work from faith. But even in what he's describing, what James describes in chapter 2, is that it's played out in care for others. Jesus tells us in John chapter 15, if you abide in me as I abide in you, you will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Then he goes on and he explains, I believe the way he's laying it out is he's telling us what that fruit is. And it's love. This is the new commandment, that you love. And, we can give other examples, but I think what I'm getting at, I think we see it in Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, in chapter 13, after talking about faith and how Christ is better than any good thing. Then in chapter 13, he starts to tell us what this life of faith looks like. And it's love of the brethren, love of the stranger, love in the marriage, not loving what the world has to give. And so, in other words, I find this interesting because when our life belongs to Jesus and we are trusting him, abiding in him, I think the proof for us is that our lives suddenly become about others. We start to love with the love of the Lord. And that's what you're describing. How you've been all about yourself. You've been all about accomplishing the next thing. And you've been really successful with it, only to find out that this is not where love is found. That love is from the Lord. He is love. And then when you place your faith in him, you find that automatically you start loving others. You start telling your students, you start telling your co-workers. That's really interesting. The way, it's almost like the Lord knows what he's talking about.
Well, and it's like I was climbing the ladder, but my ladder was against the wrong wall. Wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
you worked with Russell a little bit, didn't you? Did you not work with the tape ministry?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I offered.
Okay.
But at that point they didn't need anybody.
Okay.
And I think probably when they were looking for somebody, I wasn't available.
To something else. Yeah. Okay. So now you're not teaching anymore.
This is the first year.
Wow. How many years did you teach?
40.
Wow. And so now you're still busy. You're the church secretary, and which means multiple hats at Bernie Bible. And it was interesting, there's the timing of all of that. We were just this little tiny church for years, and all of a sudden we start to experience some growth, and we look around and go, I think we need to be we don't want to be organized for the sake of being organized, but we need a little bit of organization. And you came along at the right time, and now you're busy with that, quite busy with that actually. You help everybody know what's going on, connecting people with each other, and you also are you're writing a newsletter for the church, and there's just a lot of things that are going on. What else are you doing right now?
Well, I do have some sports psychology clients.
Okay.
I am also a certified life and health coach.
Okay.
So I have life coach clients and health coach clients. I work some at an empty vase florist in Bernie.
That's right, with my sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tutor.
Yeah.
I'm tutoring. I think that's all.
And do you still find that the Lord's opening doors for you to share your faith?
He is. He is. Particularly with my clients.
Okay.
But, I look back to, and I just have to say this because I did love teaching, and I know I was good at it. And it's so satisfying for me that I am still in touch with so many of my students. One of my girls, I taught her when she was a junior and a senior in high school. I was her maid of honor when she got married.
Really?
She named her first child after me. She is now a grandmother of 3.
Wow.
That's a little humbling. I said, that means I'm a great grandmother. And she said, yep, Miss Lester, you are.
That's awesome.
So, I think back to, I did pour into my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of fun. That's still, those are my kids. And I would always tell them every year, you are my legacy. I don't have kids of my own. I have y'all. Y'all are my legacy. So that's kind of fun.
It is, yeah. That's neat.
They've gone on to productive lives, and that's fun.
That's great. Well, Carol, I appreciate you giving me this time.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to the conversation. I've known bits and pieces, and now I know a whole lot. And that's and it's an exciting story because it's one where we see that the Lord gives us that room to knock ourselves out, and then to show us, I'm what you're looking for. And then for those of us who will trust him, not just for justification, but also sanctification, we find that he's faithful and that he does his work, and we find that we're loved.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the His Hill podcast, featuring our host, Kelly Doherty and Carol Lester. Our students head out on spring break next week. Our second years will now be traveling to Greece instead of Israel, and about a dozen first years will be heading out on temple tours on Thursday. Please keep our students in your prayers as they travel, that they would be safe and return to us refreshed and ready to finish out the school year. Once again, you've been listening to the His Hill podcast featuring our host, Kelly Doherty and Carol Lester. Thanks for joining us today. Remember to keep your eyes fixed on Christ. I'm Lizzie, and we'll see you next week.